Hello, Mike the Mapmaker here, and I'm back with episode 4 of It's Business Crime. So as you can see, our town map needs an update. So let's move the town shop over here, our little general store right at the top there. And if we're going to do that, well, we should snazz up the place. Let's make a little path through the forest, and now we've got all that extra lumber. Let's build some little villager huts and maybe some farmland and a well. Fantastic. This is looking grand. And you know what? Let's add a bit of icing on top. Let's give it a nice little banner as well. Last time we made this map of a town guard station, including a snazzy jail cell for our starting town. This episode, let's look at how you can run locking up one or more of your PCs and how we can make this fun and interesting using our mad DM skills. So let's start by making a couple of assumptions and set the scene. Assumption number 1, we are already at the station and some or all of your players are stuck in a cell. Assumption number 2, this is a quote-unquote regular town in terms of they have reasonable laws and an uncorrupted judicial system. They're good folk, essentially. And assumption number 3, our prisoners have done a significant crime. For example, let's say they attempted to rob our first store and pummeled the shopkeep in the process, but they actually got caught and subdued by the town guard. The townsfolk aren't happy with them, and their jail sentence will last several months at least.
Yes, my lord.
Jumping to the table then, they are going to be in jail cells to start, and are going to be stripped of their gear. So we're talking armor and weapons, we're taking them away. Potential magical trinkets like wands and spellbooks, take them away as well. This isn't a high security place, but even simple townsfolk know not to allow magic folk their special trinkets. In terms of game mechanics, I would offer up either a sleight of hand or a deception check to see if they can hide any of this gear on their person. The bigger the item they want to hold, the harder it is to succeed. I'd also show and tell all their stuff being placed in a chest, and the chest being taken away so they have some idea that the items are nearby and presumably recoverable. Could be a useful goal in the future. Depending on how full the jail cells already are and how many of our team have been arrested, we can separate the players to individual cells, or have them bundled together in different arrangements. Well, now that you've placed your people where they're going, what happens now? The players don't have many options at their disposal, and I don't think they'll want to sit around.
I can't take it anymore!
So just like in episode 2, let's talk about the stakes at hand, basically what could happen. Once again, with this scenario being sent to the afterlife, that's not the fail state for our heroes. Their current crimes don't really warrant being sent to the gallows. The fail state, I would say, is that the PCs actually have to spend the time in jail, whatever time you give them in there. And we as DMs are going to cleverly make sure that definitely isn't going to happen. So taking into account all other possible outcomes, I think it really boils down to these 3 things, which I will call the 3 Bs of being in jail. Outcome number 1, the first B, they pay the bail. Outcome number 2, they make a bargain with the town guard. And outcome number 3, they break out from prison and are now on the run. Okay, let's start with outcome number 1, paying the bail. And I like how American TV does it. You can spend money to leave the jail early, and the amount of money it costs depends on the crime you've done. The more serious it is, the higher the bill. On top of that, I would throw in the cost to any damages done to the victims of your crimes. So our players can pay this with whatever gold was confiscated with their items when they were first arrested. And what's the benefit of going this bail route? Well, sometimes as DMs, we have to make decisions that prioritize the flow of the game. What that means is, when we run our tabletop RPGs, we can occasionally go too easy on the PCs, because if they commit a crime, we might not always want to go down a huge police combat and wild goose chase if it would completely derail our next few sessions for what we originally had planned. So I find the temptation to let the players slip away from small crimes, just so we stay on track, well, I think that sometimes gets picked up by the players, and they can really start to push the limits of how they can abuse the law in our games. So we don't want to be able to let them off the hook all the time, even if it keeps things on track. So we don't want players to get off the hook every single time. So that's the main benefit of the bail outcome. It's that it's really simple to implement. We can, using this system, arrest our players, keep them overnight in a jail cell, and slap them with a small fine for their release. The whole interaction could take just a couple of real-world minutes, and we flash them up in the office being questioned by the guard, throwing a bit of fun role play there, then place them in their cells, strip them of their stuff. We give them the option to pay the bail, and then they're just back to being free and making decisions.
I've spent so long underground, I'd forgotten what the stars look like.
Alright, mate, calm down. On top of that, it can be used as a tool for creating a more realistic setting that adapts to the player. If our PCs, after release, go back to their original crime they were committing, wanting to finish the job, well, the town guard ain't dumb. They'll have posted new guards in the area, maybe increased security. They also might have sent someone to tail our players and make sure that they are behaving themselves after being released. I would make sure to let them spot these elements before they continue, so they don't just immediately get caught once they resume their crime spree. If they get aware of it, then they start to have to work around it, and I think that's a fun gameplay challenge we can throw at the players. So that's the bail option. We take some in-game time away from the PCs, but give them an easy way out with the opportunity to just pay a fine. What happens, though, if the players say no? No! They don't want to spend the cash and are, in fact, appalled at the idea. This is their fun adventure, after all, and there's no way my badass character would curtail to these piggies in armor. The town guard, they're just chumps, aren't they? Well, let's jump to outcome number 2, making a bargain. When faced with the bail, as said, the players simply might not want to pay it off. They could find it insulting to them as powerful characters. They also might not have any money to pay it off with as well. There are lots of reasons why they might not want to do that. But if this happens, well, we start to negotiate and offer the players a deal. We have an important character from the town offer the gang a task to do.
I guess I can.
Instead of payment. This way, everyone gets what they want. The players are freed and can potentially restore their reputation amongst the people by helping out. The town, in turn, have a serious problem solved without spending a single copper. The task or quest doesn't have to be huge and complicated. It could be as simple as a combat encounter. Giving them this proposition, we can offer the players a heroic path to redemption, making them anti-heroes of a sort in the eyes of the people. Yeah, they do crimes, but ultimately they'll help out when it comes down to it. Now, the benefit of this outcome is the role-playing and decision-making potential it brings. This is a simple town that can't magically enforce you to do this task, so our players could just leave. But in doing so, become even more wanted criminals. So then the question is, do you complete this quest? Do you do the crime instead of doing the quest? Or do you do the quest and then do the crime? And if they are successful and do the quest, do we then extrapolate this? Continue this as a storyline? Do we offer our heroes some sort of undercover vigilante role in society for dealing with problems that the town guard just can't seem to deal with themselves? There's lots of different ways this could go, and lots of cool, shady conversations you can have with the town guard and this important NPC as you work together in an uneasy alliance. Just talking about this gets me excited to run games like this with my players. It really changes up the adventuring formula that we're used to as the status quo. But again, maybe our players just flat out don't want to work with the town guard, or maybe they're straight up evil players who, instead of doing the quest they were offered, they actually jump sides, find this problem, and try to make the problem worse for the town. There's lots of reasons why they might want to do something like this. If they don't want to do option 1 and option 2, well, here comes outcome number 3. They break out. That's right, our players are going to stage a jailbreak. And that means our town guard station is now going to be a mini dungeon. Like what we did with the shop map in episode 2, we need to break the session down to make it easier for us as DMs to run. And we're going to need to come up with a series of challenges and potential ways to escalate the situation for the players. We need to come up with positive and negative stakes depending on how successful our players are. We also need to come up with some loot and some equipment for them to steal on the way out. Make it very fun and very exciting. So let's go back to our premise and say that 3 of our original team were caught by the law. They're all locked up, but one of our team actually did get away. They're still free, and better yet, the town guard don't know who they are. Now let's look at some possible ways they could plan and attempt a breakout. So, number 1 from the top, the outside player simply gets them some sort of dynamite and blows the wall up in an exciting fast free-for-all. Maybe the players have slipped a lockpick set and picked their way out. Perhaps a guard dog can be convinced, using sausages, to bring over the keys on the sleeping guard's belt, and they just sneak out with no one realizing until the morning. Maybe we could pretend to be ill and collapse in the cell, forcing the guard to check on us. Then we could quickly overpower them and knock them out. Maybe they could convince the guard to free them, so they pretend to knock out the guard, and then they escape using the guard's key. The guard is actually fine, and in the meantime they get to rob the place and they can split the loot with the guard after it's all said and done with. The perfect crime! Or we could go absolutely bonkers. Maybe someone rolls really high on a religion check and prays to Escutius, the chained prisoner god who magically sets them free in exchange for one of their souls! These are just some ideas I came up with while I was on the toilet. Now, I'm sure you could think of a lot more. Hit me in the comments with how you try to escape from this prison. Hopefully our players will have achievable ideas themselves, and all we need to do is support those ideas. If they are really stuck for escape ideas, you could have the most intelligent character roll an intelligence save in response to the situation, and then suggest a couple of general strategies they could employ to escape. If they roll badly, I would still suggest some things, but maybe pick the ideas that are more troublesome to the player or increase their chance of being spotted and caught on the way out. Now, if my players were trying to escape, I would say it shouldn't be hard to start the breakout, but it should be difficult to do it without alerting the guards, especially if they want to rob the place on the way out. So a good rule of thumb for any situation where we want there to be a bit of tension that's ramping up, whatever the first thing they do, we give them a difficulty challenge that's low, and then the next time they want to do something that we give them a DC, well, we add 2 to the number. We do this every time, and so as it goes, it gets harder and harder, and the players, well, they're pushing their luck. It's a very exciting mechanic, and here's an example of how that might look. So imagine, we're in the cell with our players. One person, well, they say, "Can I search the cell?" And because they're trapped in there and have plenty of time, well, they can be quite meticulous. I wouldn't even have them roll. I'd say eventually you find a loose brick, and when you pull it out, there's a makeshift lockpick behind it, made of, I don't know, altered eating utensils. When they try to lockpick the cell, I would give them a DC around about an 8, perhaps. If they roll beneath that, don't worry, they will succeed, but I'll say as punishment they break the makeshift lockpicks. They can't lockpick anything else. They then can try to sneak up to the sleeping guard. Let's make that a DC 10. If they succeed, they get the key, they can unlock the cells, everyone leaves no problem. If they fail, the guard wakes up, but they manage to knock them out in the kerfuffle. Here's the thing though, that guard won't stay unconscious for long, so now there's a ticking clock element. They can leave the cells, and let's say, in this example, a strong character, they just want to cut and run. They want to get out of here before this gets out of hand. So they go the most direct route and try to brute force open a window. Give them a DC 12 athletics check. Successful roll, and they get it open without making a sound. What happens if they roll under? Well, how about I leave it to you to come up with a fail state there? Something that's exciting and raises the stakes. Yeah, pause the video, have a little think. What would you do as a DM in that situation? Well, let's say they succeeded and are leaving into the safety of the night. But our rogue player, well, they want to profit from all this, and they decide to continue into the station alone, looking for something to steal. I would give them a DC 14 stealth check to allow them to move about without being detected. If they succeed, let's say they find maybe a loose bag of coins in the captain's office. But looking at the lavish interior, we tell them they suspect there's probably even more gold nearby. An investigation check of DC 16, and they find a hidden chest full of jewels behind the picture on the wall. What a successful breakout. So this gives you an idea of how to space out challenges and raise the stakes when the game gets like this. I like to change up the skill checks so they use different ones each time, but the players can twist the game into their favour with clever applications of other skills. And of course, if they fail at any of these points, well, you could always just have a guard stumble upon them and immediately set off an alarm. Now we go into a full pursuit. The law is after them, chasing our squad of adventurers through the streets of the town. Maybe they escape. Maybe they hide for the meantime. Or, if they didn't manage to get their gear back, maybe they get caught again. If this happens, well, we simply send them back to our jail map, but this time, we're going to increase the security. Perhaps more guards this time.
Of
or
course.
the PCs, let's handcuff them constantly while they're in prison. Or maybe we take the spellcasters and gag them. There's no chance they could speak magic words. Now could be a great time to introduce something like a Thieves Guild agent to come along and offer to help them escape in exchange for owing the head of the guild something. Or we could send the players to a more secure big prison, somewhere that is better equipped to hold adventurers of their caliber. Maybe I should make a map of this hypothetical place in the future. I mean, maybe I should make a video on the whole subject. Maybe I will, eventually. Until then, we can send the players off to this secure big prison we big up to them, we tell them all about, and while they're traveling there in a big security convoy, well, that could be an opportunity for them to escape again, this time fleeing straight into the wilderness. So there you have it. That is just a really quick example. As you can see, there's so many different ways this can go. Hopefully, I've helped ground it for you a little bit and kind of helped your mind compartmentalize all these different crazy things. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode, where I will make a map that might explain how the players got caught by the fuzz and sent to jail. That's right, I'll be making an actual battle map where your players can duke it out with the cops. And then after that, in episode 6, I'll talk about strategy and tactics that your town guard NPCs might deploy on the battlefield to deal with this dangerous set of criminal adventurers. So until then, keep on trucking.